All right, we're all set. Okay, thank you for joining us again for the second half of our educational budget walkthrough, and I will pass it over back to our Director of Corporate Services, Ms. Drusevich.
Just bear with us 1 second, folks. Okay, so now we are moving on to the second half of the budget presentation, being the capital portion. So the morning session, we focused on operations, and now we are going to move to the capital section. So you're going to see many faces pop in and out throughout the afternoon. We have directors as well as their managers coming in to present their own relevant division projects. Just to recap, we do have a break scheduled this afternoon, estimating it to be around 2:30 to 2:40, could be earlier. We'll see how Jake does. So just looking at page 13 of the budget document, what you're seeing is very similar charts that you've seen throughout the entire document, but for capital, revenues, and expenses only. So you're seeing 2022's budget at nearly 20 million and the proposed 2023 budget at 12.9 million in revenues. And for expenses, a $20 million budget in 2022, 13.1 in 2023. So the past two budget cycles, being budget year 2021 and 2022, council's budgeted for streetscape projects, both Harrow Streetscape and Essex Streetscape projects. So those were larger than normal budget years, and you're seeing the drastic decrease there. Administration has taken significant efforts in reducing the volume of capital projects to reduce any potential tax increase as well. So they've been very cognizant of which projects need to be done, and we're going to walk through them in detail now. Before we get into the specifics of each project, we're going to touch on asset management another time. As you've seen earlier, nearly 50% of our total revenue and expense is for this asset management related projects. So we are legislated under regulation to follow asset management practices. In 2016, the town underwent its first asset management study. Just in 2022, we recently went through the core asset study. I'll define that in a later slide, what core means. But basically what this study does is it looks at all of the town's assets, the entire asset portfolio that the town currently owns and operates. And it gives administration and council an idea of how much do we need to put away each year to make sure that we're not hit with an unexpected burden, right? So it's, again, that stabilized approach of putting X dollars amount away each year for when that rehab has to occur, so that you're not doing a, say, drastic increase when it does have to occur. So we're going to get into the nitty gritty of that in the next slide. So this is directly from the study. The study is posted on the town's website, so I highly recommend that you take a glance at it. It's a great source of information, and financial recommendations are also contained within it. So you can see the core that we just went through consists of roads, bridges, culverts, stormwater, water and wastewater infrastructure. So anything in regards to those divisions is held within there. The study just recently found that is valued at over 625 million for the town. So why they call it core is because those are, the way I look at it, the core assets required to run a municipality. Non-core, which you'll see in the next few slides, because it is budgeted for update in 2023 per legislation, we have to have that completed, includes general capital. It could be things such as land, building, community centers, things of that sort. Right now, that is based on an older study done in 2017. So it's 71 million, but I do believe that you'll likely see an increase once we go through the 2023 update. Next slide, please. So what the plan told us was how much on an average basis, on an average year, should you be putting towards each different portfolio. So you can see dictated in blue is directly from the plan. And in green is what we are proposing as a spend in 2023. So before I talk about the numbers here, I really just want to emphasize that they dictate an average, but our spends may be higher or lower every year because it depends on when we replace the asset. So we would always expect some sort of deviation, again, because it depends on the date that we purchase the asset or replace it. But you would hope that the deficits are fairly nominal each year. You're kind of spending in and about what you should per the asset management plan. So here you can see, I mentioned this earlier when we talk about the 1.6% levy increase for roads. The largest portfolio that's underfunded is roads and roadside. So right now, the deficit compared to what AMP has told us to replace is $7 million. When you look at the other categories, this significantly outweighs those. So water is showing a slight deficit too of 1.7 and wastewater of about $500,000. So again, some of these will be due to timing, just when we choose to replace the assets. But we're well aware that roads is underfunded within the municipality. So the next slide is for core assets. And this looks slightly different, right, because we haven't completed the AMP. So it's based on older data. So right now it appears as if we're spending more than what AMP is recognizing. We need to go through that exercise in 23 to get realistic values of what those assets are worth today. Also, vehicles is a great one to drill in on and give you an example of. So AMP requests or dictates that, you know, we should spend $300,000 annually in order to make sure that we're rehabilitating our vehicles per the useful life in the policy, and not delaying that replacement. Well, what may have happened is we ended up replacing 2 to 3 vehicles this year. And so that's why it's showing a surplus, right? The replacement happened this year. So I just give you that graphic. Next slide, please. So the financial plan. So how are we going to fund these assets when we know we have nearly 700 million assets to replace? And so back in 16, we started thinking about this. Council began some initiatives. So there was a levy introduced there to try and fund this gap. And in 2018, the asset management reserve was established. And this is a dedicated reserve that, as you can see, for 2023, nearly 50% of our asset program is being funded from. So through 2018 to 2023, we've been contributing alternative investment income that we've been receiving has gone into this fund. In 2018, council resolved to fund a large portion of landfill revenue that we receive into this fund. 2019, taxation transfers occur each year of nearly 900,000 to ensure that we have the monies to replace the assets. For 2023, the stormwater increase, you'll see it's a 2.2%. That is directly from the study. It's included in the urban levy increase. The 2023 proposed roads levy is 1.6. We have gone over this already in quite some detail, but again, the consultant prescribed a rate of 2.6. So we are recommending phasing that in. The next graphic is just really a neat information graphic. I recommend that you take a read of it and share it. It's interesting. It shows the different categories of assets and number of assets that we own across the municipality. Next slide. I know this is tough to read. In your budget document, we're looking at page 51, and I'm going to walk through what this is. So this is the reserve that we were just referring to on the financial strategy tab, and it is showing us what is our estimated forecast of the asset management reserve. So you're seeing at the end of 23, we're starting at a $7 million balance, and with those initiatives that we talked about, the capital levy being the 1.6 for roads, also the 900,000 of taxation transfers, we have some interest earned, we're ending at a $4.6 million balance. Now, if you look at page 52, the ending balance predicted at 2027 is 1.3 million left. So we know that over the next few years, we need to take some pretty drastic measures to keep this fund replenished and ensure that our assets are being replaced when they're due. So if you read through your budget document, you'll notice that we've recommended in red bold letters, because it hasn't been adopted yet. We would ask for adoption in that budget year. Different capital levies to get us fully to the amount recommended by the consultants. And we've also recommended dividend income be attributed to this fund to make sure that we have a sustainable balance for the future. So next, I guess before we head into the capital layout, is there any questions on asset management and the reserve?
Elizabeth, any questions from members of council? Councillor Meady?
That was a little bit of a concerning fact right there. How dangerous is getting down to like under $2 million in our asset reserve?
I wouldn't use the word dangerous because, administration is always looking for alternative revenue streams, whether it be grants, whether it be long-term debt, should we have to go down that route. We're always looking at ways to be innovative and can we extend the useful life of assets any further? I think it's just really what the importance of that illustration is that in the next few years, we have to be finding ways to contribute to the fund. Okay.
Okay, seeing none, we'll continue.
Thank you, through the chair. So now this is also a very important discussion. I'm going to run through how capital projects are laid out and presented throughout the capital budget document. So what you see here is all of the relevant headings, and I'm going to walk through each heading. So project number, this will be especially important for council and deliberations, because if you are wanting administration to drill in on a certain project, that's what we reference. You'll have seen this in previous council reports. This is really the naming convention that we use across the municipality. So that's the project number there. The next column is the project name, and that is sort of a snapshot of what the intent of that project is. You have a quick project description. It's nothing too extensive because our document would be hundreds and hundreds of pages long. So we've tried to just provide summary information. The asset management status is especially important. Again, we talked about it in operating, but depending on what that asset status is, will determine how it can be funded, right? So new assets, like the two that you're seeing on the screen, we cannot use asset management reserve because they aren't for replacement. These are due to growth or unexpected reasons. So for that reason, you're seeing, if you go to the next column, the project cost is what we're expecting the total project to be. And then you're seeing funding sources, and you're seeing 4 different potential sources. Number one being the asset management reserve that we've went through. Other reserve could be development charge reserve. This year, beside the very far right column, you're seeing funding source. We've identified which reserve that is coming from. So if it's coming from a specific reserve, we've identified that and marked it. Grant funding is exactly that, grant funding. You'll see an asterisk underneath grant funding and at the bottom of each of your page. Very important because anything grant funded, we have assumed the project can only be completed with successful receipt of the grant. So that's quite important. It's contingent completion on grant funding. Other, which says including long-term debt, this includes the 50% cost share between Town of Amherstburg or the school boards for shared municipal facilities. And then you're seeing funded from taxation. So this is from a tax rate perspective, the most important column. Anything with an amount in funded from taxation does have an impact on the tax rate. So for example, council contingency, you're seeing it funded from tax at $50,000. If council were to reduce or eliminate that project, it would have a direct impact on the tax rate. And then on the flip side, if council were to reduce or eliminate the regional public transit, because there's no funding from taxation, it would have no impact on the tax rate. So again, very critical that council understands this, because when it comes to deliberation, the funding, if you're looking at removing a project and adding another project, the funding mechanisms need to align. So you can't say that you're going to eliminate the regional public transit and that way you're reducing taxes because it's not funded from tax. And you can't ask for a replacement project or a new project to be funded from AMP, right? You can't say, I want to put a sidewalk here that doesn't exist. I want to fund it from AMP. That's not what council has resolved that reserve to be used for. So next slide, please. So that's where the cheat sheet that we referred to earlier comes in handy, that if you're looking at the asset status from the previous table that we just went over, here is how it can be funded. So the projects, when you're looking at deliberating and removing, adding, exchanging, the funding models have to align. So for forecast years, we will not be reviewing forecast years in absolute detail. Again, we will ask council for adoption in principle. What is important to note there is the asterisks. So you will see that there are some significant projects identified in the forecast years that will be contingent on grant funding, or we may have to take long-term debt to have them funded. That will be an in-year decision for council to decide. But administration believes that they've brought forward the projects that are of priority in the council. So we are now going to get into the actual proposed projects. Does anyone have any questions on the funding before we move on?
To Director Drusevich. Councilor Karen.
Everyone on council understands what contingency council is. Council projects outside approved budget. Maybe you explain it to everyone.
Actually, you know what? I'm going to hand it over to CAO Sweet because we're going to get into his slides and he has a slide on that. Yeah. Go next slide, Abby.
You, Mayor Bondi. So this will be the start of you'll see other divisions come in and start talking about their capital projects. So in terms of the office of the CEO, council falls under that right now. So the first one was council contingency, budget of $50,000. You can see the rationale there for projects outside the approved budget. So to Councillor Gueron's question, in the past, the full amount has been used. In other years, it has not been used. But it's for initiatives that maybe come up throughout the year, the council wants to partake in, but there's no funding for it. So it's kind of been used for that in the past. I can't think of a particular issue because it wasn't used heavily last year. I'm not sure if Mayor Bonnie could think of anything, but it usually has been a certain initiative that we could unexpected that all council wants to support, just no funding for it. And usually also above your council discretionary fund as well. So it's another opportunity to use. But as mentioned, this is funded through the tax base. So if it was removed or reduced, it would affect reduce the tax rate. Next slide. So regional public transit system. This was an item that was brought forward from the previous council that asked administration to look into. So it's a budget of $25,000. The rationale you can see on your map there. Currently, we have the red line. That's the Leamington to Windsor transit system in place. The blue line would be from Colchester through Harrow McGregor to St. Clair College. Again, would work with Transit Windsor. However, as you saw previously, that is totally contingent, if any, on two things. One, if this council wants to continue down that path. Secondly, it's on grant funding. So we apply for grant funding, and if we receive grant funding, we proceed. I can tell you currently the province has came out in the last month. They're only funding transit systems, municipalities that have current transit systems. They're not doing anything new. Next slide. And you can go right into the next slide. So because we've heard council loud and clear, this is remove and replace vault door at Town Hall. If you walk by, the vault door is gone. We've had money at the end of 2022 through the CAO contingency, so we already removed that. So this project can be removed. It was from the tax rate, so we'll reduce the tax rate. Oh, no, it wasn't on this one, sorry. But this project will be eliminated because it's already been taken care of. Next slide.
So I apologize because we're kind of jumping all over the place here, but this falls under corporate services proposed capital projects. And we just followed it up with the vault because of the project that CEO Sweet was just discussing. And so as everyone can see, especially during lunch break, we are running very short on space here at Town Hall. So we are having to look at ways to make what space we do have extremely efficient. So this vault was previously used as a storage ground, as you can see in the picture. Actually, we have one of our staff, Kelly Breer, has been doing an excellent job at cleaning it out. And so we anticipate potentially relocating the photocopier. We have a postage machine that's sitting on someone's desk right now. So we're trying to make the most of this space. As of right now, it will not be office space.
So the next item is the police budget. So in terms of capital, similar to the council contingency, we have a $25,000 police contingency. That's been used at the facility out in Harold, the main detachment, as well as a satellite office here in Essex Center. And this is something they don't know what may come up throughout the year, but a replacement of carpet or some other things that are unanticipated. So that is what this capital project is used for. Again, this is not through the tax rate, it's through the police reserve. Next slide. And I'll turn this over to our acting clerk.
Thank you through you, Madam Mayor. So this, as you can see from the picture here, the pillars on each of the corner and the front entrance of the Colchester Memorial Cemetery crumbled in 2022. So our internal staff went in there and did a great job of cleaning that up. But it does leave a gap there. And I don't know if you can tell from this picture or not, but there is a post that runs through the middle. Right now, it is sectioned off. We're just proposing that those be replaced.
Okay. So here we have finance and business services proposed capital projects. So I have been talking a lot about asset management and the required plan. So the asset management non-core is legislated to be completed. So per regulation 588, we have to do the non-core now that core has been completed. We have to do an update every 5 years, and that's the point that we're at for 2023. And so this will be funded through OCIF grant fundings. And again, it's a legislated requirement for us to complete this. And then the vault was also part of that portfolio that we already discussed. So at this point, we are actually going to hand it over to Jack Barron. Wondering where he is. Yeah, do you want to grab him? Thank you, Chief. Thank you. There he is. Perfect. Okay, so Jack is our manager of information technology, and so he is now going to walk through his slides for the capital projects under his portfolio. Can we go next slide?
Through the chair, thank you. Just gonna give an overview of the different projects that IT will be doing. The first one is Great Plains software upgrade. So Great Plains is our financial software. Basically, everything integrates into GP, all of our financial information in and out. So we're going to be doing an upgrade to that software, which also includes updating any software that feeds into it. The next project is virtual meeting rooms. So like this one, we'll be looking at outfitting some of our other locations to have video, audio, video, speakers, so we can host virtual meetings throughout. Sorry. Oh, okay.
Add that this is also a taxation funded project. So if this project were reduced or eliminated, it would impact the tax rate. Sorry for interrupting.
So we're looking at hosting virtual meetings throughout the municipality. So setting up different facilities to have the ability to have cameras, audio, video, similar to this one. Replacing our storage area network. Right now, we do all of our nightly backups on a big box of hard drives. So that device has outlived its useful life. So we're looking at replacing that with newer technology. This will increase our backup speeds and also be more secure and have better manageability on it. And replacing the display screens at the arenas and the pools. So right now we have digital display screens throughout the municipality. I believe we have them pool in both Harrow and Essex Arena. So that equipment has outlived its useful life. So we're looking at doing some new technology that will, first of all, be able to be managed through the cloud, some more secure devices, and be able to add hopefully a few more locations. And updates to the drainage module through GP. This is with the drainage department. They need some enhancements to the drainage module for reporting and billing, and this will improve accuracy in that module.
Director Juice Fritz, can I suggest maybe after every department goes, we open it up to questions? It's right now off CEO or corporate services.
Jack, any questions? Councilor Verbeek?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Just thanks, Jack. Just two quick questions. I'll give you both questions and then you can just answer them both. My first one would be about our new virtual, the virtual meeting hardware to outfit a couple of other locations. I'm just wondering what would be our other locations that we'd be looking to outfit. And also, so the screens, I look at the screens when I go into our facilities. I can go up to it right now and look and see what rink I'm going to find my grandson's next game type of thing. So what would be the reason I would, because we're going to get asked this from the public. Why do these screens need to be updated or changed? Because I mean, they're kind of working in the capacity they now.
Through the chair, thank you. First, I'll just touch base on that question. It's running on outdated hardware. So the operating system is out of date, needs to be updated and replaced. So it will also be, I'll just trigger the mic. Switches over. So also the, we're looking at having additional locations. And then the other question was, I'm sorry, can you repeat it again?
That because it's going to be what we'll be asked, right? For virtual meeting hardware, I'm glad to hear that we're going to be outfitting some other of our facilities. I'm wondering which ones.
Okay, so those will be McGregor and Harrow Arena. I couldn't remember it off the top of my head. And if there's any surplus in the budget, we'll be looking at doing some additional things as well to enhance those meeting rooms.
Thank you. I have Deputy Mayor Shepley and then Councillor Guerin.
Through the mayor, just out of curiosity, of the three main ones there, I would assume that backup one is probably the most would be your biggest priority to get done of the three anyways.
Backup is always key. We want to make sure our environment is secure and safe. So, and also all of our data. So the backup hardware is probably a priority, but there's other ones, depending on which department it's for, they're going to say theirs is more of a priority than mine.
Councillor Guerin, and then we'll go to our CAO.
Through the mayor, just curious on the displays, are these displays, we have a plan for the existing ones? Are we discarding them? Are they, and what type of displays are they? Could they be used for home use?
I don't know if we'll be keeping the screens. So we're looking, primarily it's the back end hardware that needs to be replaced. So if we can repurpose and reuse the existing display screens, we definitely will, and utilize or repurpose and reuse any of the existing infrastructure there. But it's the back end stuff that definitely needs to be replaced. And now hardware has come down so much, and there's so many newer technologies from when we first implemented this. Now they have just little boxes that strap onto the back of a screen. So we're looking at options, and I know there's been interest throughout with other facilities to have something like that.
Okay, CAOC.
We go through, I know you'll see the slides up there, but I think it's important you do look in your books. Deputy Mayor Shepley asked a great question, but in terms of priorities, but out of those three, only the one in terms of the virtual meetings will affect your tax base.
Thank you, Jack. So next up, we have our Community Services Division. I'm going to hand it over to our Director, Jake Morasso I'm sorry, what's your last name? Morrison. It's payback, okay? To introduce his team. Thank you.
Community services has 3 divisions, and we're going to take you through all of our projects that we have planned this upcoming year. And we're going to start off first with Chief Arnell and Deputy Chief Pilon, who are with the fire department.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, Council. Thank you so much for letting us come in and provide you our update for the 23 capital budget for fire. As Director Morissette said, I got Deputy Chief Pilon with me today, and we're going to tag team this. So we're giving him some opportunity to do this as well. So you'll see us both doing this. Next screen, please. So our first thing up is replacement of notebook computers. We had that on, and councilors from last year would note that those notebooks were scheduled last year. We didn't purchase them. We rolled it into this year, and we added some money because what we've found is what we're trying to do is currently have 3 different operating systems to track fire department stuff, such as inspections, fire calls, and all those things. We're looking at trying to consolidate that, make it one system, and we're working with the city of Windsor right now, and we're going to see if we can get that all consolidated through the city, hopefully be a little cost effective. And on top of that, with dispatch, our dispatch services are from there. All that information that we retype here would already be in the system. So it's going to save some time. So we're looking at merging the 3 systems. So the tablets, what they're for now, and it's getting increasingly dangerous for us to get out there and fight fires. The tablets will allow our crews to go in and take a look where the cables are for electric cars, so they don't cut an electric cable, those sorts of things, as well as hydrant placements and stuff like that as they're en route to fire. Next slide, please. Our PPE, our personal protection equipment, that's our bunker gear and helmets and boots and all those things. We're running it on right about an 8-year life cycle right now. The NFPA standard and Section 21 guidelines, which we follow through the province of Ontario, show us that every 10 years you have to replace a set of gear. All of it, like helmets and everything, because after 10 years, they're no longer any good. We're trying to do it at an 8-year base, which gives us 2 years of practical life left in that gear that sits there, because they do note that we should have 2 sets of bunker gear for every firefighter, but that's an expense that we're trying to avoid. So we have some spare gear that if we have a fire, those firefighters can use the spare gear while we get it cleaned and get it back to them. So right now, last year it was 12 months to get a set of bunker gear due to, as that favored word we all heard, COVID. And we just got some preliminary pricing for this year, and they've upped the cost over 20% from last year. Deputy Pilon, please.
That down through the chair. Our next item for capital is our hose appliance replacement. So this is our various types of hoses that we have on our trucks, as well as appliances. And appliances are nozzles, couplings, fittings, that type of thing, gate valves for hydrants. And it's an equipment life cycle replacement. Our hose is tested annually, and that determines if there's any leaks or wears or tears to it. And if we find any leaks or wears or tears, that sort of thing, they're removed from service, any deficiencies. The conditions that these hoses and appliance operate in, they're going to get damaged. They're going to, wear out, and that's why we have to replace them. Next slide. Pager replacement. So this is our primary means of notifying our firefighters that we have an emergency response. So it's a 24/7, 365-day item that they wear all the time. So over that time, wears and tears, breaks. So it's replacing damaged pagers and ones that are worn out. Next slide. Our next item is the replacement of our support vehicle at Station 3. This vehicle has reached its life cycle. It's 24 years old. It also coincides with the master fire plan for our vehicle replacement. We need a vehicle that's used for more usable equipment. This vehicle right now is basically only used to move personnel to and from the scene. There's no storage capabilities on it. It's basically just a people mover. That's all it is. Next slide. Ice water rescue equipment. This is our project. This is our year 5 of our 5-year implementation plan. And it's going to be used to purchase some suits, some ropes, some fittings, appliances needed for ice water rescue. And this would complete our 5-year outfit our team with all the equipment they need. Next slide.
Next is our radio system upgrade. Again, we're working with the city of Windsor. Where we are now, we have a commercial grade portable radio system that we use for in the event of a fire, right? And those portable radios are used by works departments, construction companies, those types of things, but they're not intrinsically safe to use in an environment that there could be an explosion or whatever. These radios do, and as you can see the difference, the black radio on the left and the green one on the right, what happens is our firefighters today, if they happen to be in a burning building and required to change the channel on the radio, they got to take their glove off to do that. You're removing your personal protective gear to change the channel. The green radios, they're a radio system that's designed for fire use. It's better, it's safe, and it's far safer for our firefighters as they provide on here. As well, just an update right now, EMS in Windsor Essex County is updating their radio system. Right now we run on a 2-system platform. We page our firefighters on one sort of frequency and we run radios on another. So once we get to a scene, the pagers are basically dead. They can't hear anything and they have to run off radios, and we don't have enough radios for everybody. We're hoping that if we get to this system, the new pagers we purchase will be part of the system, which then they could put an earphone into their ear and go in with their PPE and be able to hear all communications as they're in the building, nice and clear. Today with the commercial grade stuff, even the best person talking is pretty garbled and hard to hear. So we're hoping that, we can do this. We're going to work again. We're working with our partners in the city. I mean, it just makes perfect sense that if we're going to change to something, we're going to change to something that can be serviced, and it's been proven to work over several years with the city of Windsor. Our current paging system is 35 years old. What we use today, it started back 35 years ago. So we're looking to upgrade that for safety purposes for firefighters and the crews. Next slide, please. Community risk assessment. What we're asking for is a master fire plan this year. The province of Ontario 4 years ago mandated all municipalities that you must do a major community risk assessment every 5 years. beginning July 1st of 2024, right? So what we're looking at is if we get a master fire plan, our last master fire plan was from 17 to 21. We implemented, we just came back to council, we implemented better than 85% of that plan we put into action, which was wonderful with your support. And we're looking at doing another master plan, which shouldn't have that much stuff in it. But on top of that, we're going to be able to use the consultants to help us determine best location for new fire station 3. So we'll have them look at response areas and see if they can help us determine that. And when they do this plan, they do a community risk assessment. So we will be compliant and ready to go for July 1st, 2024. All we got to do is send the plan into the province. So that's the rationale for putting in a master plan this year. And our plan is complete as of 21. That's all of our requests.
Deputy Chief Pilon, I'm quite proud of the service that you provide for our community. I have one quick question and then I'll open it up to council. How many firefighters do we have trained in the ice water rescue?
Currently, we have a force of 10. That was when council provided us direction to create the team, it was 10 people. So right now we have 10 firefighters trained and we do annual training. And as Chief Pilon said, this is year 5 of the new project. So now it'll go in as replacement for all the things going forward. But we can honestly say it's worked very well. It's not, I mean, just to update the balance of council that wasn't here prior to, we're not looking at doing the lake because really we don't have a boat. So we're not going to do the lake, but we have a lot of water within our community, ditches, ponds, those kinds of things. And that's what this team is concentrating on, making sure they can help somebody if they need the help.
Thank you. Fantastic work. Any questions from members of council to Councillor Allard?
I have a couple questions. The PPE, that's for one person? The replacement of the PPE?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the $32,000, what we're doing, that's an average cost. That's to cover. Right now, it looks like we're going to be able to get 6 sets a year. So because of the price increase, but what we were looking at doing was between 6 and 8 sets a year. So we got 67 firefighters. If we replace 7 every year, we'll always meet the 10-year standard that we, instead of having to buy 60 sets in 1 year. So we'll buy helmets, boots, bunker gear, gloves, balaclavas, everything for 6 or 7 people.
Yes. The van replacement, have you got something in mind? Because you say it's carrying people now and not much in like for fire help or anything like that.
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, what we're doing is we're going to do the same thing we've done at Station 1. That I did a presentation in my previous employment on that van. It's a very dangerous van because of center of gravity and stuff like that. So we've been very careful over the years. What we're doing is we're going to get a pickup truck, just like we did here at Station 1. So the pickup truck will have a sliding tray, SCBA stuff will be in the back of the sliding tray, a bunch of equipment, and it'll all get closed up. Beauty of going to that is now 5 people can ride in the vehicle and we can use it for CO calls. We can use it for medical calls instead of driving a $700,000 fire truck down the road and beat it up. So what we're doing is trying to be a little more cost efficient when we go to some of these smaller calls that we do on a daily basis and make it a little cheaper and easier for our firefighters as well.
One last question. There's lots of numbers put up there. Is there anything that he's used against the taxes or not against the taxes?
There is nothing against funded through taxation, all covered through the reserves.
Thank you, Councilor Allard. Any further questions from members of council to our fire department? All right, seeing none. Director Morrisou.
Thank you, Mayor Bondi. Next, we'll do our Parks and Facilities Division, and we'll call the Manager of Parks and Facilities, Rodney Clee.
Hello, thank you through your mayor. Just go through the parks budget. I start off with the parks end of it. Can I get next slide, please? So the first one is the Harrow downtown landscaping. We've now completed the Harrow downtown streetscape, and the landscaping that's up to the town properties. Or one of the plans for the streetscaping was to do some of that work is at the same time, but none of that happened because we were trying to cut and save money. But a lot of the landscaping needs to be basically redone. Some of the landscapings was done back in the 90s and is in poor shape. So we'd like to try and freshen it up to meet the new standard of the downtown of Harrow. Next slide. Dugouts of the Harrow Diamond. So now that the town owns the former Harrow High School property, we'd like to put add a shade structure to the diamonds, like our other diamonds have for the dugout areas. Next slide. A replacement of the fence along Fairview, Max Miller Way. So if you drive that section of road, you'll see that we've been doing patches over the several years. The fence is in very poor condition, so we'd like to try and update the rest of the remaining fence. Next slide. This is the replacement of wood benches or bleachers at the Essex Sports Fields. So we've been slowly updating our wooden old metal benches into new aluminum ones just to bring them up to code, and we also utilize them for different events and whatnot. Next slide. Replacement of the asphalt at the basketball courts, Barkey's Park. So there's a trail and a little basketball court area at Barkey's Park in Essex here. The trail and the basketball court are deteriorating quite a bit. The surface is unlevel. We would like to make it accessible as well, and widen the path out and bring it up to our accessible standards. Next slide. Rebuilding the chimney at the Heritage train station. We had a few repairs done in the recent years, and we had a contractor take a look at this. The chimney is in very poor condition and does require extensive work. And we'd like to try and maintain our historical buildings to a proper standard. Next slide. A replacement of the UTV plow and salter. It has reached its end of useful life cycle. We use this year round. This is done for floating diamonds. We use it for events, winter control. We try and utilize our machinery year round. And just from the use and the additional from the winter control, the life expectancy has dropped significantly. So we'd like to replace that. Next slide. Replacement of pickup truck 860. So through our life cycle, we are looking at replacing our pickup trucks. This one's reached the 10-year life cycle. It was hit about a year ago now in the parking lot. That's why the back end looks a little different than the front. But we're also looking into potentially electric options if in that viability. Next slide. Cement walkway into Stanton Park. So this is an overhead view of Stanton Park currently. Our next slide is going to be replacement of Stanton Park. But we're looking at making the park more accessible. So we're looking to bring trails and sidewalks to all our parks to make them accessible as possible and kind of connecting each feature. Next slide. So this is Stanton Park. The park has definitely passed its life cycle. The equipment is very out of date. Replacement of any of these features would be just about impossible to find. And the accessibility of our playgrounds, we're trying to make our playgrounds more accessible, and the pea gravel is not considered an accessible access point. Next slide. Electrical to Heritage Gardens. We're looking and we're working with ELK to start looking at bringing in electrical services for our park. This park is very sought after for events. and we'd like to be able to host them there. So we're looking at similar electrical services as Colchester Park and around the Essex Arena for larger events. This would be kind of a phase-in approach. This would basically get the initial transformer in place so that we can start looking at expanding that out. Next slide. Replacement of the line sprayer. So this is one of the line sprayers that we have. We paint baseball field foul lines, soccer field lines, parking lot lines, and event parking as well. So we just have to life cycle these. The pumps do wear out after time, and this one's up due for replacement. Colchester Community Center upgrades. So this building was built back in '95. It was originally built as a restaurant, and now we've kind of converted it into a community services community center. And we retrofitted the inside, but now the outside facade needs to be done. The windows, they have like service windows in place, so they're outdated. They're not for restaurants anymore. So like that, they had it for serving food. The deck surface is leaking. We're causing damage below. We had some patches done, but we're looking into it. It needs a lot more work than just a quick patch. It needs the full rubber membrane on top is done. The deck railing is starting to get unstable. We secured it for now, but it needs a lot more work than just little patches. Next slide. Entry wave signs repairs. So just each center has these entryway signs, and we've had them in place now for quite a few years, and they're just starting to get worn, wear and tear, sun damage, plow damage, anything else. So we'd like to try and fix the ones that we can. Next slide. Replacement for the protective surface for the Harrow Playground. So the Harrow Playground was installed not quite 10 years ago, but the amount of use it gets is deteriorating the top coat. So we're starting to get wear through that top coat, and then we have to do these patches. So it's a good thing to have, like everybody's using the parks, but we're starting to wear down that protective surface and it needs to be replaced. Next slide. This is the sidewalk around the Harrow Arena, around the Harrow Daycare. The retention wall section of the sidewalk is starting to deteriorate, as you can see in the picture. We're trying to make the the sidewalks more accessible by increasing the width and making the retaining wall a bit more permanent than this wooden structure. Also, the Harrow Daycare playground is starting to fail because of that retention wall failing. So I'd like to replace that. Next slide. Colchester Schoolhouse Services. So now that we're having an agreement to lease out or renting out the the Colchester Schoolhouse, there's no services. We look at potentially putting some money aside to updating the services in there, the electrical. There's no water right now because there's no heat, and the natural gas as well. Next slide. Lions Hall accessibility. We were accessible in getting a grant thanks to some of our staff here. And we're looking at making the building a little more accessible. That ramp is not an accessible slope, so that has to be changed out, and then some of the doorway accesses. But fortunately, we were lucky to get a grant for that. Next slide. Parks equipment or replacement contingency fund. So we have over 11 parks in the town of Essex that has associated value to well over $100,000, and the replacement parts from just wear and tear is very expensive. Now the parts are expensive because they're very durable and they're up to a certain standard that they need to be. So that's why this fund is usually there, because it's just something that we can't really plan on. It's based off of use and wear and tear, and then vandalism as well. Next slide. That's it. Any questions?
Thank you, Rodney. Any questions from members of council to Mr. Klee? Councillor Guerin?
Two questions, Rod. The fencing along Fairview Avenue, that's from the entrance into the arena to where the Diamond 3 is, or is it also include like where the soccer field is as well?
So through you, Mayor, it's different sections because we have been doing patches in certain areas. It's going to be basically from the dog park to the entrance point of the arena, and then the entrance point of the arena to basically the skate park. Then there's some new sections there. And then from that, just up to the soccer complex, basically.
Okay, so this is just fence replacement, not the poles?
The poles that were needed. If the posts are reusable, then we're going to reuse them, but it's mainly the sections that need to be done.
We had some discussions at the Fun Fest committee about access maybe for parking in the future, somewhere up closer to the entrance to the arena, so maybe we can take that in consideration prior to doing the job. Another one I had was on the Harrow, the rubber around the playground.
Yep.
So if we ever get in a situation there, and because we're not sure what's going on at the high school and that, if we put this rubber mat down around the fairgrounds and we had to move the park for whatever reason, such as we did with Tot, can that surface be removed and replaced, or would we have to be starting all over again?
Through you, Mayor. You'd have to start all over again. It's the port in place is not basically removable. So if there was a plan to relocate it, that should be taken into consideration.
So for that, then I was just wondering, have we taken that into consideration yet? The possibility of perhaps having to relocate for any future growth we might want to do onto the arena, et cetera, et cetera.
Through Mayor Bondi, at this point, we haven't had that consideration. We've looked at the entire scope of the Harrow High School property. That playground is still in good condition, so there wasn't really a thought in moving it. There has been other areas where there have been concerns with the actual assets there that may be requiring concerns and requiring movement. But at this point, there hasn't been anything for the playground that would be required to move it.
Council? Councilor McGuire Blaze?
Thank you, through the chair. You mentioned Lions Hall. Is that one of our assets, the Lions Hall? The town owns that?
Through you, Mayor. Yes, that's a facility at the Harrow Fairgrounds next to the Agricultural Society building, right there on front.
Okay.
It was kind of a permanent lease before when the Lions Club was active, and then they kind of gave it back to the town. The town took ownership of it probably 4 years ago again.
Thank you.
And going back to Councilor Garon's question, I know our community services on an annual basis, there's always a grant called Cal Tire grant for recycled material that comes out on an annual basis. We apply for that every year. So sometimes we're about 50% as our average of getting it. So I know if anything happened, I believe this year they'll be applying again for it. So one of those things, again, we always look for additional revenue where we can find it.
Questions from members of council? One thing that I would love to see, it may not be possible in 2023, but it's Sparky's Park in the basketball court back there. The cement is completely leaned and you really can't, it's not usable. So I'm hoping to see that on our list one day soon. Oh, the basketball net?
Just gotta ask. It's there.
Oh, where? Hang on, did I miss it? Yes. All right. Yes, I'm all about the basketball. All right. Any further comments? Director Morrissey.
So Rodney will actually be back after Cynthia presents her section as well. He'll take us through the harbor and the arenas. But if there's no further questions, then we'll call our manager of recreation and culture, Cynthia Cakebread.
Sorry. Thanks. I'm going to be quick. I only have a few projects related to the Essex Recreation Complex. As you know, it's a joint use facility with the school board, so there are shared costs in each of the projects. I believe this is a carry forward with additional funding. We're probably looking at next year and the year after to replace some of our HVAC units. Again, 50% cost share, and this is just end of life cycling. This is an original unit from when the facility opened in 1998. This one, Jake could probably speak more to. It's a grant for zero emission in the engineering study, and we are currently pitching it to the school board.
Thank you, Cynthia. So This is a project that administration has been working on for probably a year now. And essentially what it is it's a plan to get our facilities to lessen our carbon footprint. So right now, the federal government is taking strong initiatives to promote change to better our world due to climate change. And the previous council and this council has shown that there's a care factor towards looking out for our environment, especially with the tree bylaw that we talked about. There's a clear initiative that this council would like to see as well. So the previous council passed the climate adaptation plan, and this council has also discussed the trees, as I just mentioned. This is another way for the town to begin working towards climate change and impacting our own community. So this project is 80% subsidized by the federal government and is already approved by them. So pending council accepts us to go ahead with this, we will have the engineering studies completed. And completing these studies will show how the town of Essex facilities can change, upgrade, or add infrastructure to our facilities. This would be in accordance with our asset management plan and life cycles of equipment. But some examples of things that might be possible with this is automation of ice plants, solar panels on facilities, changes or upgrades to dehumidifier units, HVAC equipment, battery-powered ice resurfacers, or any other ways that the engineers feel that our facilities could upgrade. So just for example, in the next couple of years, we're looking at replacing the dehumidification unit at the Essex Recreation Complex, which is probably going to be $800,000 to $1 million just for that unit alone. So if the engineering studies come out with a way that we can lessen our carbon footprint, we can qualify for 80% grant funding through the federal government on those projects. So it's a huge benefit for the town of Essex to go ahead with that. It's also important to remember that the federal government does have a carbon tax added to every gas bill right now. And by 2023, it's expected that the cost of the federal carbon tax will increase by 200 to 300%. So just as an example, our last month bill at the Essex Arena had about $1,200 alone in just the carbon tax. So we would see a huge increase on a monthly basis by 2020 or by 2030 if we did not start taking these initiatives into consideration. In accordance with the climate adaptation plan, administration is recommending to proceed with the study pending council's approval to see what projects will be possible, and we'll be coming back in future years with plans on what we would be doing. So there obviously would be another chance to have budget deliberations from council on projects that we would proceed with as related to this study.
We're looking also at the heat exchangers for our pools, which are in very poor shape right now. We had some issues in the past couple of months with heating and maintaining heat. We have had this study done, the school board completed pricing on it, and we are looking at replacing all three of the heat exchangers. Again, they're past their useful life.
Council to Mrs. Cakebreast. Oh, Councilor McGuire, please.
Through the chair. When we're looking at the net zero study, 40,000, 70,000, is that the total amount that we're looking at, or is that the 20% that we would be paying? Because 80% would be government funded.
Through Mayor Bondi, that is the total cost of the projects. So both arena facilities would be done in this study, as well as the Essex Recreation Complex. So the combined package would be a total cost of $70,000 for both arenas, and then $40,000 for the recreation complex. And then we would receive 80% back from that to fund the project. So we'd be looking at approximately $6,000 of town of Essex money that would be putting forward.
Sorry, just the previous question was in regards to the heat, the HVAC unit on top of the roof at the Essex Recreation Complex, $300,000. Is that the total again, or is that the 50% that we would pay, and then 50% would be paid by the school board, which would be a total of $600,000?
Through your worship, that is the total cost of the project. And then at the end, it would be split 50-50 with the school board.
Thank you.
Council? Okay, seeing none, we'll go on. Thank you. We want our pools warm, so I hope we support those. Yeah. We're a little spoiled now. Okay, Mr. Klee, thank you.
So this is the Harrow Arena parking lot and catch basin replacement. So we've been asking for a few years now to replace the parking lot at the Harrow Arena. We did get some money for the catch basins, and working with the capital services manager, David, that we've kind of identified the fact that there'd be a lot of savings if we did the project all at once. The parking lot is in really bad condition. The parking lot was installed in the mid-80s. The speed bumps are worn right out. The surface is failing all over the place. The in-ground services, the catch basins, they're all corrugated steel and they're all rotting away. That's why the one picture there is of a washout from a hole that was created from that. But it's in dire need of replacement. Next slide, please. Stand-up floor scrubber. This is the floor scrubber that we mainly use at the Maydell Center, but it's also used at all the other facilities for floor stripping. It's one of our floor stripping style scrubbers, and it is basically at the end of its useful life cycle. Next slide. This is a replacement of the partitions at the Essex Center Sports Complex bathrooms. These are bathrooms throughout the facility within the dressing rooms as well. These partitions are just worn out and damaged and need to be replaced. Slide. A replacement of the Harrow Arena canteen exhaust fan. So now that we have somebody renting out the canteen, we have been basically getting by with the current condition of the exhaust fan. The exhaust fan was installed in the 70s. It's just basically up for replacement. Next slide. This is the Harrow Arena outer building repairs. The building was is kind of split down the side. The dome set shape portion of the building is 70s. It was re-facaded a little bit in the 2001 when the building was the dressing rooms were added on. All our window ceiling is cracking, so it needs to be replaced. There's water penetration from there's that wooden archway that goes the length of the dome portion of the roof is penetrating water inside there, so there's water getting inside the blocks. So it's just something that needs to be repaired. Next slide. Automatic doors at the twin pad. So we looked at doing this last budget, but we didn't have our costs or estimates from contractors came in much higher than expected. We were actually able to receive a grant too. This is increasing the accessibility of our facility to the sliding style glass doors that we have at the front entrance. Next slide. Harrow Community Room HVAC. So this HVAC system supplies the community room, the offices, and the airs room area, the front lobby of the arena. It was installed in 2012. There's two air conditioner systems on it, and the one system is got shot and needs to be replaced. So instead of putting the money into fixing the old patching the old unit, we would like to replace the whole unit. Next slide. That's it for the arena. So if there's any questions for the arena.
Mayor, hi Rodney. The accessible doors at the twin pads up top at the walking track. Don't we have those automatic doors there? Like just closest to the elevator?
Through you, Mayor. Yes, we do have the push button style ones. So they do bring a level of accessibility there. The sliding doors just increase our level of accessibility. It's a little easier to operate the automatic sliding doors than it is the push button style, depending on the capabilities of whoever's accessing. It would just increase our accessibility.
Allard?
Yes, one question. The speed bumps that are in the Harrow Arena parking lot, are they going to be there too?
The intent is to replace what's existing, so those speed bumps will be put back in place. Yeah, we didn't want to spend money in replacing them because they're currently worn out. We'd like to use our funds appropriately. Thank you. That's it. We'll move on to the harbor. Harbor's pretty easy. So the beachside concession upgrades. So with the other parks budget request for doing the repairs in the Cultures Community Center. That floor that was leaking or that deck that was needing repairs, this is what happened from it. The water started penetrating through and started doing damage inside there. There's also some other repairs that we'd like to do in there. There's gas line upgrades and some fixes to the HVAC or the ductless, or the kitchen hood, sorry.
Questions on that, Councilor McGuire, please?
Is that duct tape on the ceiling?
Yes, it is.
Any further questions? If not, we can, we'll keep going. Arts, culture and tourism then. Thank you, Rodney.
Thank you, Mayor Bondi. And just to Councilor McGuire Blaze, that is not standard operating procedures. It was the facility was shut down and winterized during the season. So knowing that we were hoping to have this project, we just did a little patchwork quickly. In saying that, going to arts, culture, and tourism, we do this is a yearly project that we tend to do to increase the cultural aspect of the municipality. So we do have a mural or a sculpture in working with the ACT committee that is promoted as a project for the town each year.
Through the chair, thank you. So we do have a break scheduled this afternoon. I know it feels like we just had lunch, but we do have some snacks provided, and we are waiting on the next managers to present to arrive. So at this point, we're running a little bit ahead of schedule, but do we want to take a 5-minute break there is more refreshments in the large meeting room? Okay.
All right, we will go to Director Jerusevich, and after we're back for a little break, I think most members of council are back.
Thank you, through the chair. So before we get into our last two divisions, I just want to do a little recap. So this hasn't happened before for me, so this was sort of exciting. We actually had a question come in from the public. So we're going to answer it right now because I think it's good for the public to see as well as council. And so just on that note as well, we had over 100 viewers this morning tune in as well. So we had a fairly good count tune in. So Abby's going to put up the slideshow for us, and we're going to revisit slide 11. Also for council and the public's knowledge, this will be posted to council agendas. So this slideshow will be made public for everyone to take a look at. So the question that came in from the public was, how can I see growth funded projects? And how do I know when the projects are coming from development charge reserve? So looking at this capital layout again, if you look to the far right column under funding source, if the project was a growth project, it's going to have the status new, and the funding source will be identified as development charge reserve. So that addresses that question. But I just want to go back and talk about the funded from taxation. So as of now, anything that is funded from taxation will have a tax impact if council decides to change it. So if council decides to increase the budget or decrease it, it would increase the tax rate or decrease it. Anything else that in that funded from taxation column, if there is nothing there, there is a funding model proposed. So I just want to reiterate that for council. So at this point, we will move it over to our Director of Development Services, Lori Chadwick. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Mayor Bondi. As you will see today, the Development Services Department 2023 capital budget is what we would consider a small but mighty budget. What you'll also notice is that there are proposed capital projects in our department that will not be funded through taxation, but instead will be funded through reserves or grant funding. So today we have with us our Manager of Planning Services, Rita Jabbour, and our Manager of Building Services, Kevin Carter, presenting you with our capital projects in their respective divisions. Our third department manager, being Nelson Silvera, our Manager of Economic Development, is not here with us today, is not able to attend, and therefore I will be the ECDEV capital project for 2023. Thank you.
Thank you. Excuse me, through you, Ms. Mayor. So it's very hard for me to see, but in terms of our capital projects, the first is the countywide active transportation system. That's the Greenway. There's a component of that is soft projects. So that's separate from the hard project, which is more of the infrastructure related to that system. The soft project relates to such things as bike lockers, repair stations, bike rodeos, where members of the public are taught about bike safety, and helmet programs that are delivered to the public. And the budget for that is $20,000. And the budget for that is actually shared between the town of Essex and the county of Essex. The county of Essex pays half of that. And our next capital project is the development charges background study. Now, normally we would have started this study in 2024 because the Development Charges Act says we have to do one every 5 years. But as you're all aware, through Director Jerusevich, there's been some considerable changes with regards to the development charge system in Ontario, and we need to start a little bit early in terms of updating that bylaw as a result of Bill 23. So we will be looking to procure the background study in 2023, and the budget for that is $50,000. And that consultant will be retained this year. And again, the objective is to complete that background study, which is required under the Development Charges Act.
If okay with you, Madam Mayor, we'll just continue. If there's any questions for the entire department, then we can proceed as such. So I'll go through the Economic Development Capital Project. What you'll see here on this slide is, thank you, the proposed project called agritourism implementation. So a couple of years ago, council completed an agritourism development strategy. What we're doing here is we're proposing the continuation of certain action items as a part of that strategy. This particular project will include a few items under the proposed budget of $25,000, and those items include the creation and implementation of an ambassador program, an education webinar, and content creation. So just to continue, if I could, just to share a little bit about the ambassador program. An ambassador program is a marketing campaign that puts essentially any organization, in this particular instance, the town of Essex, and that organization's message. And in this instance, our manager of economic development would be putting a spotlight on our agritourism messaging in the hands of ambassadors with specific goals in mind, such as increasing tourism, cultivating a reputation, and building brand recognition. Ambassadors are designed to create a closer connection with consumers to help drive tourism. And in this particular instance, we're driving tourism in the agribusiness and agritourism sector in the town of Essex. So essentially, our goal here is to build partnerships between our brand and the people who love our products and services. Thank you.
Welcome, Mr. Carter.
Council, Madam Mayor. The building department has one item, and that is a new truck. The existing truck is a 2014, little over 150,000 miles on it, 8 years old. It still has value, and the trade-in value would be best if we depart with it now. I just want to let council know that it was a phenomenal year, 2022 for the building department. We brought in $1.2 million worth of revenue. It's a user fee based. It's not taxpayers. We do pay for our own vehicles, fuel, insurance, wages, and so forth. So I kindly ask council to approve a new truck. And that's my report.
Now would be a good time to ask questions. Okay, council, if you have any questions for our development services team. Seeing none, we'll keep moving.
So we're just gonna allow for a little bit of transition time here. Through the chair. So our last division of this day session, and then we'll do a slight recap. So I'm going to pass it over to our Director of Infrastructure Services, Kevin Gerard, to introduce his team.
So through the mayor, thank you. So we're here today to present the infrastructure services capital budget. First, we have the public works equipment, which will be followed by our roads and roadside, as well as stormwater management. And then finally, and last but not least, our water and wastewater division. So first up, I'll introduce Norm Nucio, who will be presenting our manager of operations and drainage, who will be presenting our public works equipment budget.
Thanks, Kev. So I'm just going to go through this first graph. This is a graph that we generally use to assess our life cycle needs for our equipment. So we monitor the first line, which is called the repairs and maintenance costs. So what it is what we do is we monitor the ongoing costs and upkeep of this equipment to keep it in good repair and safe operating conditions, and try to reduce the downtime without potentially affecting our level of service. As you can see from that line, as time progresses, your repairs and maintenance costs increase. We also monitor the other line, which is the depreciation line. We monitor this, used to evaluate the equipment and the cost to repair it versus what the vehicle is actually worth. What ends up happening is you find the center of this graph, which is called the optimum cost, or quite frankly, the best time to move that piece of equipment. Next slide. Am I doing this? Oh, you got the clicker? Sorry. I was confused about the clicker thing for a minute. So we got this backwards. Okay. So 1 second. Okay, so this is our John Deere backhoe. You're going to hear a lot of repetitive things from me throughout our piece of equipment. It's all very general in terms of past its useful life. So this piece of equipment past its useful life is seeing some major corrosion to the body and frame. This backhoe has been used to load salt for several years and drastically reduces the lifespan of the equipment. There's been some major issues with the hydraulic pump on this. We had to replace it. It actually blew up on us last summer while doing our shouldering program. And now there's some major issues with that hydraulic pump due to the particles and plastic from the inside is all interbound in our hydraulic line. So there's some major issues with that. Sorry, I'm looking out of queue here. So this piece of equipment is the backbone of our shouldering and asphalt program, like I kind of there. It plays a key role in preparing for our capital road projects and ongoing maintenance. I guess I'll go through some of the stuff on the slide. So we have it proposed as a $233,000 replacement value, and the estimated residual is $5,000. Again, just estimated. We don't know exactly what that's going to be. We go to the next slide. 534. So this truck has passed its useful life, wearing at a fast rate due to the environment it works in, being winter control and other operational services. Using harsh materials like brine and salt is very harsh on the corrosion of the body and the frame, also the wiring and computers within the truck. This truck is being upgraded from a 3-ton to a 5-ton, which is something we've done in the past, I think with one of our 3 tons. The truck typically provides winter control services in the urban setting. And one of the issues we have with these smaller trucks is the salt capacity. These smaller trucks have a quick turnaround time while they're on the roads. So what ends up happening is they run out of salt much sooner, which causes more frequent trips to the operations yard to be reloaded, which in turn means we're spending less time on the winter control route. We now have 2 new 5 tons in our fleet with the larger capacity, and has greatly improved our working time in winter events and while still being able to maneuver the urban setting safely. Next slide. Oh, you jumped out of order. So F550 as unit 536, it's past its useful life, has 182,000 kilometers on it. Again, seeing major corrosion and to the frame and body, which you're obviously seeing a trend with a lot of our equipment. This is one of our only fleet trucks that we have as a patrol vehicle, used on a daily basis, especially when in a winter control event. This is a great example of the graph we just went over, the continual upkeep and the residual value left in this vehicle. The upkeep is going to be very expensive versus what this vehicle is actually still worth at this time. So when this truck goes down, it's down. We don't have any backups for this vehicle. I think we have one more. So this is the big one. So this is a 15-ton tandem 541. This is one of our current snow plows that we use. Not quite at its life cycle period yet, but has about 2 to 3 years left. As a good piece of equipment for the operations department. The red truck on the slide is unit 901, which is currently being used to haul sludge from the Essex pollution plant, which was purchased in 2006. And that was before my time, so I'm pretty sure it was in operations for a little while, then transferred to this department. So you're seeing a bit of a trend with that too. It's used to haul dried sludge, wastewater biosolids, tongue twister for me, from the plant about 1 to 2 times a week and potentially be increasing in the coming years. Currently Aqua is using this tandem truck, which was purchased from the county as a used vehicle, which was a snow plow for them for roughly 10 years and is now approaching almost 30 years old. When this vehicle was purchased, there were some major corrosion issues to the frame and body at that time. Soon this truck will be difficult to safety. It will need major repairs to keep it roadworthy for years to come. So administration is recommending and proposing that we transfer our good 541 unit, the tandem plow truck, to
environmental services to be utilized to haul sludge, which I just talked about, from the pollution plant to the landfill. So in time, if this is proved, we will then tender a new truck to replace Unit 541, which will take 1 to 1.5 years and potentially longer, which will bring us almost to the end of that life cycle for the tandem truck that we currently have. At that time, we'll then transfer 541 to environmental services to be utilized for Aqua to haul sludge back and forth from the plant to the landfill when we receive that new truck. So I think that was everything that we had there. If anybody has any questions on anything?
Thank you, Norm. I still think we should name our trucks and plows. I talked to the CAO about that. Then this way, us as counselors, we can follow those vehicles through their life cycle. And I think it's a good idea. It's funny. Any questions from members of Councillor Allard?
Chair, just to clarify, you're buying 2 trucks and moving 1 and getting rid of 1.
No, through the chair. We'd be buying 1 truck, selling off the red truck, which is being utilized by Aqua, and then transferring the current truck that we are using in operations for them to utilize for roughly another 10 years.
Through the chair. We're seeing it, every department has asked us for basically a new pickup truck. How many pickup trucks does the municipality have? How many are asset?
Through the chair, I personally don't know exactly how many trucks the whole fleet has. I know our department has 3 that we utilize right now.
Follow up. I asked that question because if all of our vehicles are coming up and if we have a lot of them, I don't know how many are in our fleet as a municipality. I'm wondering if administration has looked into a program such as Enterprise where they take care of making sure that your vehicles are exchanged when they need to be and we don't fall into a situation where vehicles are blowing pipes and hoses and stuff.
Through the mayor, we actually have received a similar presentation to the one. I'm familiar with the program that you're talking about with Enterprise, which is essentially a lease program where they determine what the replacement of the vehicle is and the best time to replace that vehicle is. Essentially what they're doing is the same thing as us. The only difference is that they have this large market that they can sell these used vehicles to. But essentially through our asset management plan, this is, and the slide that Norm actually presented with the life cycle of the vehicle and the optimal time to replace it, that's exactly what we're doing. These vehicles are, the ones that are being proposed as part of this budget are past their useful life, which means that they're fully amortized through the asset management plan and fully funded from the life cycle reserve. So unless it's an upgrade, that's the only time that we would pay to pay from taxation or another source other than asset management to purchase these vehicles.
Council on the vehicles? Okay, seeing none, we'll keep going.
All right, so next up is our manager of capital works and asset management, David Macbeth. He's going to be presenting the roads and roadside budget as well as the stormwater management budget. What we'll do is we'll go through the roads and roadside budget, open it up for questions, and then continue on into the stormwater management to discuss some of our bridges and culvert works that we're going to be doing. So from there, I'll pass it back to Dave.
Thank you, Kevin. To you, Madam Mayor. Thank you. I'm looking forward to present the proposed capital projects for the road and roadsides for 2023. So on this slide here, I wanted to provide town council with some background information on traffic patterns for our roads within wards 1 and ward 2. So this figure here is a graduated figure. So where the lines are thicker, that represents higher traffic volumes. The blue lines are for County of Essex roads and the green lines are town roads. And so you can see the largest traffic road within Ward 2 there is North Malden Road, whose traffic volumes range from 1,400 to 2,500 vehicles per day. And this is one of the reasons that we have for the past few years been rehabilitating North Malden Road, starting at Highway 3 and working towards Walker Road. Next slide. So these are the traffic patterns for Wards 3 and 4. Same color system, county roads blue and town roads green. So the higher traffic roads in these wards are the third concession. Smith Road from the third concession to Walker Road, which has about 1,300 vehicles a day. The third concession from Roseboro to Arnertown Line, which has about 800 to 1,600 vehicles per day. Gore Road from Fox to Ridge Road has 1,100 to 1,600. And Ridge Road from County Road 20 to County Road 50, where there's 700 to 1,000 vehicles per day using those roads. Next slide. So this slide represents our road maintenance, how we kind of approach our roads within the municipality. So on the left-hand side of the figure there, that is the PCI, or the road scoring index of the condition of the roads, goes from 0 to 100, 100 being at the top of the figure. And the bottom part of the slide is the number of years in service. And I want to kind of point out, you can see when it hits about 75% of the life cycle of the road, they drop off the roads to the condition. As soon as they start to fail, they fail rapidly. And the best effort that the town should be making is to try and do as much early preventative maintenance on the roads to try and delay that. And that's what those spikes at the top are. If you do enough preventative maintenance at the top, you delay and you increase the PCI index. And then once you kind of get out of the green area, then you start looking at having to rehabilitate your roads. That might involve doing milling and paving, and then or cold recycled paving, where you have to mill out a road and then repave the surface, or possibly both depths depending on condition. And if the road gets poor enough, below 20, then we're looking at full road reconstruction, which would be the whole granular base. And usually you start to look into other things as well that might need to be upgraded, whether that's your storm systems or curbs and everything else, because usually at that state, everything is fairly deteriorated. As well, I wanted to point out are the cost impact. So if you look at the preventative maintenance, they're the lowest costs. Trying to do crack sealing, patching, and overlays are the cheapest and the most effective way that we can use our money. Once you kind of get below and do rehabilitation, the price, dramatically increases. It's still very expensive. And then road reconstruction is obviously the most expensive, right? That's you've seen it probably recently, getting the Essex Streetscape and replacing a lot of the roads there, or maybe some of the other projects that have come in recently. See the numbers that come in off of those projects when we're replacing all the way down to the bottom of the road base. Next slide, please. So our first capital project is Maidstone Arthur Gosfield. So this one, it was already previously approved. We're looking for some additional funds. This one is one of the quirkiest intersections in the town. I'm sure you've all heard complaints about it as traffic is moving off of Arthur onto County Road 8, or vehicles continuing County Road 8. The town had done a study, and it was actually recommended that the roundabout be a preferred option, but that price tag at the time when the study was done was over $4 million. So we looked at some interim solutions, and we have been working with a consultant, and due to some delays last year and trying to get property acquisitions, we couldn't move forward with the job in 2022. So but we are at the point now, we've acquired the property. We want to move forward the project in 2023. So we're looking for additional funding to a budget of $745,000, and the reason that is the expended cost is the expected cost of inflation from the original budget, as well as utility relocate. So as the design was done, we found that there were utility relocations that needed to be completed by third-party utilities, and we're actually having that work supposed to be starting either later this week or early next week. Next slide, please. The next item on the capital project is the rehabilitation of Ridge Road from County Road 20 to a little south of Huffman Road. So as one of the higher traveled roads in Ward 3, it has a very low PCI rating index on its condition, and the proposed works would be doing some regrading, recompacting, and padding the granular base. And then we'd be doing 3 lifts of Tar and Chip Road, 2 lifts this year, 1 lift next year in order to extend the useful life of the road. Next slide, please. So the next 3 slides actually are going to be part of what is considered our hot mix asphalt resurfacing program. So that falls under our rehabilitation portion of the asphalt road maintenance slide that I showed you. So the first rehabilitation project up is the next phase of North Talbot Road from Walker Side Road to County Road 11. So as discussed earlier, the town has been rehabilitating this highly used roadway in Ward 2, and this would be the final phase. These contracts are typically tendered by the County of Essex. We have them administer the contract on our behalf, which helps save the town a considerable amount of money each year. The next slide, please. The next road that we're looking to try and do as part of our hot mix program is the Arthur Street, south of County Road 20 to Murdoch Street in Harrow. The roads there are in need of being milled and paved in order to bring the road condition back up, as well as doing the 2 cul-de-sacs off of Arthur as well. The recommended solution, as I said, is to mill the existing asphalt and pave an overlay. And we'll see as well whether or not we can get the County of Essex to do this work as part of that because they have similar work in the area. So hopefully that's something that we can add in to try and save some money as well. The next slide. So the next road and last road that we're hoping to do this upcoming year is the Wright Road in Colchester from County Road 50 to the southern limits. Once again, this road is due to be maintained by milling and paving the road. And once again, we're hoping, as the county is planning to do work along County Road 50, to put this into their hands to see if they'll administrate it, do the administration and coordinate that work on our behalf. So the next item in our capital budget is the road resurfacing program. Every year we try and approximately do about 6 kilometers worth of tar and chip roads on our rural roads. These are an overlay of a single lift, and it's done to extend the useful life. So using our street scan data, roads are identified, and we usually do preventative maintenance the year before, whether it's fixing the edges of the road, spray patching, and then we put this lift on top to extend the useful life so it doesn't break down further. It's cheaper than having to go back and do like Ridge Road, where you have to do 3 lifts, and we're trying to keep those costs down and keep these roads in good, useful shape. A lot of this falls under our asset management. We're trying to keep an average rating of our roads of about 70. That's, at the fair condition, because there's always some above and beyond. And so this is part of our asset management as well. So the next project that we have is McCormick Beach Road. So this is a cul-de-sac that's going to be constructed at the end of the road. So the property to the east had the road closed, had its road allowance closed, and they had provided money to the municipality to allow a cul-de-sac to be constructed. And this is done in order to have a proper road termination, as well as turnaround for emergency and waste collection service vehicles. Next slide. So the next item on the capital list is the Sea Watch Trail along County Road 50. So this is a multi-year program to pave the shoulders on both sides of County Road 50 from County Road 41 to Wright Road. And it's to provide safe navigation for cyclists in our busiest tourism area. This work is being coordinated with the County of Essex, and the amount noted on the slide there is the total cost amount for the town of our share. Is it not 60%?
Through the cost for 2023, not the entire project.
Okay.
Just want to elaborate a little bit on the funding of it. So when we come back for deliberations, you will see a slight revision to the project depending on what the county approves once their budget is approved. They have approved from County Road to Dahinda, I believe. Is that accurate, Mayor Bondi? Yes. And so also noted on this is due to grant funding, right? So there was a previous funding model that I'll be sure to circulate to council so that you have it for your knowledge. And this was adopted through council in early spring. Thanks. Sorry, Dave.
Thank you, Kate. No, appreciate that. So, all right, next slide, please. The next item we have is we're looking to get feasibility study done for CWATS. So, like the county, the trail on County Road 50, we need to plan for future expansion into the CWATS program through the town. And this one is to look at the study of putting a trail along Maidstone Avenue and Essex from South Talbot up to about Bell Road. And so the study would be coordinated through the County of Essex through their CWATS program to determine the feasibility of constructing a trail along Maidstone. And it would look to see if whether or not the trail would need to be adjacent to the roadway or separated. And it would give us a plan for how to move forward with that section of the trail. So the $30,000 in the budget on that item refers to the town's 60% share of the cost. So the study itself would be 50,000. Our share would be 30. The rest of it is paid for by the County of Essex. The next capital project that we're hoping to do improvements on is for South Talbot Road. As you know, from probably many complaints, the bend in the road there is fairly sharp, and sometimes people do not drive it properly or approach it within proper care. So what we're looking to do is increase the radius in the road. So we'd be only doing it on the one side of the road to increase the curve. So it's a gentler curve so vehicles can navigate it. And we would be extending the asphalt and curb into the right of way closer to the property line, repainting the lines and adding in any signage that we need to for that intersection. The next one is the Wilson Street parking lot. So this is a town-owned parking lot. It is behind the Dollar Tree and it's in the Heritage Park Pavilion. You can see in the background as well where the bathroom is being constructed. So it's in poor condition. It needs repairs to extend its useful life before ultimately being replaced probably in the future, but we're trying to not let it deteriorate to more than it needs to. So there will be portions of the parking lot that will have asphalt that is paved and patched and painting. Well, the Townsview Estates sidewalk. So as per previous town council's direction, the sidewalk on Morris Drive in Townsview Estates was flipped from the north to the south side of the road, and it was delayed to this 2023 year. And so the developer is required to pay a portion of the sidewalk, with the town making up any shortfall due to any inflationary costs for completing it this year, as well as the logistics of crossing the two spillways that are from the roadway, coming from the roadway into the stormwater pond. The next item we have is the Public Works washroom update. So this update is to construct 2 individual bathrooms, including an area for a change in each bathroom at the Public Works building at 2100 Ferris Road in Harrow. These will be constructed next to the existing bathrooms. The current facilities don't have both male and female facilities, and we want to be able to make sure that everyone feels comfortable. So. Next slide, and I believe the last slide as well is the annual sidewalk maintenance. So once again, as part of the asset management, the town goes through as part of our yearly maintenance to remove and replace sidewalks that are deficient, whether that is due to condition through cracking, settlement, or safety issues, or just updating them to be compliant with the new standards. We have a lot of sidewalks that are not 1.5 meters wide, which they should be as we replace them. So we have a budget of $120,000. And for these sidewalks, we try and do them in large blocks. It's hopefully not just replacing a panel here and there, which we will do. It's trying to replace blocks so the whole neighborhood is done so they're not interrupted many times. So that is the last slide for the roads and roadside. Is there any questions?
Good. This is, we like to talk about roads here. Deputy Mayor Shepley.
Through the mayor, just because I know you're talking about tar and chip, but I think we'll get tarred and feathered if we don't ask you why Irwin, is not being on the list. It's been explained to us in private, but I think it's important that we ask the question on public so that you can maybe explain what the reason is, because every year they've been promised it, and I'm already getting questions already, and they haven't even discussed what's being done yet.
Through you, Madam Mayor. So Irwin is currently being under detailed design. It's with a consultant, which will be completed sometime this year. Our expectation is to tender that and have it in next year's budget. And then part of the reason is we didn't want to have multiple roads along Main Street with the streetscape and the one behind it to both be out of commission. So we're hoping as the one is done, we'll begin the next one as well. You know, budgetary restrictions, right? It costs a lot of money to reconstruct a road, as I mentioned in the slide earlier. So that it is on the list. You should see it in next year's. I believe it's listed in the 4-year forecast.
We don't have a concrete for sure next year though, right? That's because I know, I mean, we've been promising them for a while and I get it, but we need an assurity for these guys that that road's going to get done. And then my next question, I got one more after that.
Thank you. Through the mayor, I'll take that question just because it's a little bit before Dave's time actually here with the town. But so Irwin itself has been on the town's radar for quite some time. We actually undertook some preliminary design probably about 6 years ago. So we're undertaking the full detailed design now. That was approved in the 2022 capital budget. As David mentioned, we are looking at a completion date of the engineering sometime this summer. So it'll give us an idea of exactly how much that's going to cost. Also, as Dave mentioned, we did include it in the 4-year capital forecast. So it is in there for council's consideration. But the funding of it is truly up to us to propose to you in the 2024 budget and up for you to decide when that time comes.
My next question would be on, I think it's PW 0013, the road behind Tim Hortons there. Is that where is there a 3-way stop there? Somebody is that same section?
Through the mayor, yes. Operations actually installed a temporary 3-way stop to try and improve some of the that we were receiving. The intent is to keep that as a temporary measure, as South Talbot Road is a collector road within the town of Essex. Its intent is to move traffic. So we intend to, if council approves this capital budget, we intend to remove that temporary 3-way stop and improve the safety of the road through the acquisition or the approval of the project.
Question is on 0015. The extra that we're paying out on that, was that because we delayed the project or were we always paying the extra on that?
Yeah, Gosfield Arthur Maidstone intersection. Or is that Townsview? Townsview. Okay, just don't have the numbers in front of me. Yes, because the previous town council had agreed to delay that contract. The developer, if this decision, he made it clear that if it was decided to be flipped, he would not install it. He would just provide his contribution, and it was decided at council meeting that time that they were going to flip it and delay any installation until this year.
For members of council, Councillor Allard, then Councillor Guerin.
I have a couple questions. Now, you talked about Ridge Road getting 3 lifts and Wright Road getting 1 lift. Can you explain what a lift is?
There is a difference between the two. So Wright Road is an asphalt road. So based on the condition, we're hoping that on that one, we can just mill out about 50 mils, about 2 inches worth of asphalt, repave it to recondition the road to, up to a higher PCI index, a better solution. Ridge Road is almost like a full reconstruction. It's not all the way to the granular base, but we put on 3 lifts because we're going to pulverize the existing road. Right. And then we're going to regrade it and then be putting on 3 lifts of tar and chip, right, on top of that. So, and it's done with 2 in 1 year and 1 the following year. So residents do have to have a bit of a, they're going to have to deal with it for about 1.5 years, right? Is if you've ever driven on a road after it's been done, it's almost turns into a gravel road. The tar melts and it gets better. It becomes what you would see on majority of the rural roads that you see in our township.
And also through the chair, Wright Road, are you trying to get the county to do the section of Wright Road because they are doing 50 as it is?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, that is the general idea. If we can try and partner up with the county, because they do all their paving projects, they have a much larger paving program than we do, they get much better pricing. So if we can get them to mill and pave roads on our behalf, or full reconstruct or rehabilitate, as in the case of North Malden, we try to do that to try and save the town and its residents money.
Why not Eiler?
To you, Madam Mayor. It was kind of a toss-up in all honesty. Both roads need to be done. We understand that. And if you look at our 4-year capital plan, we do have Eiler on there. I believe that is falling into 2025, if my memory serves me right. Ridge Road needs to be done all the way from County Road 20 to County Road 50. So we're doing half of it this year, half next, with the third lift also being done at that time. And then we're going to move over and do Eiler.
Good questions. Counselor Garrett?
Mayor, a couple questions. The CWATS feasibility study, who drives the boat on that? So it's 60, 40, was it? Split? So we're paying X amount of it. Who actually steers all that and makes the final decisions and sources it out and all that?
Mayor, the county takes care of that. They run the program for CWATS, and they will be the ones who would get that feasibility study done along with other ones for other municipalities at the same time.
Say, do we have, or how much input do we have on it?
I'm going to defer that to Director Gerard.
Yes, through the mayor. So the study's completed. It's done in partnership with the town. So we do both provide input on the study. One of the major factors driving the feasibility study is also that the CWATS master plan actually has that segment of the CWATS program as a paved shoulder. As we know, there's actually a curb and gutter along that side, on the Essex side of the road. And the simple fact that we've seen so much development in that area with the new Home Hardware, the new development of the Essex Town Center, there's a need to look at a facility change. And in order to undertake a facility change under the CWATS master plan, we are required to complete the feasibility study. So that is part of the driving factor and why we want to get this completed so that we can get that trail installed.
So then now continuing the trail the other way along South Talbot from going back towards Victoria, that's in part with, that's MTO, correct? What is the timelines on that? And is there gonna be ditch work there too that has to be done? Are we moving back the ditch from where it currently is, say in front of, say, Crawford and pulling it back? And the trail going in there?
Through the mayor, yes, the MTO is responsible for installing a multi-use trail along South Talbot from Maidstone all the way to Victoria. The one that's existing there today, which is the Victoria to the Greenway crossing, will be relocated as part of the MTO works. The actual drain that's there will be shifted once the road is fully completed, and the trail also moving away from the road. The detailed design for the multi-use trail from the Greenway to Maidstone hasn't been completed at this time. In our preliminary discussions with the MTO, they've indicated that it would likely go on the non-Highway 3 side, so on the north portion, on the north side, in front of the new Crawford packaging plant, lift tow, those lots. So that's what the preliminary design says right now, but through detailed design, I'm sure that we'll know a little bit more.
Then continuing with MTO stuff and that, the Hanlon extension that we're going to be doing, because we're going to ask the question when it comes to roads, what's going on in Hanlon extension? We've closed off Victoria. What is the game plan there? Like, where are we? And when can we start telling people that we think that road will be completed? Because we're going to lose soccer fields. There's some other impacts there too.
Through the mayor, that file right now is with legal and legislative services. Obviously, in the absence of the director there, that file sits in that role. We're currently working on an agreement with the property owner and MTO, two separate agreements. One for the funding of the roadway through that property, which is with the MTO, and the other for let's say the actual building of the road and the land acquisition to build that road through. So that file is they're currently in negotiations or drafting those agreements at the moment, but in the absence of that director right now, that file is kind of at a standstill until we can get somebody in that role.
Councillor Guerin, I think it's a fairly good roads budget. I mean, if we had more money, it'd be even better, but we're in tight budget times right now. I do have a question. Walnut Street. I just have to do a shout out for Walnut Street. I know that it's on our list. I do, and Eiler. I agree with Councillor Allard. Eiler and Ridge were two roads in Ward 3 that were really popular, and Irwin definitely in Ward 1. And no matter what happens with the streetscape, we have to get done Victoria. So, Councillor Mady.
The McCormick Road. The slide came off pretty quick. Are you coming down McCormick and then back up Crystal, or is it just McCormick itself that's going to be there?
Through Madam Mayor. So it's just at the end of McCormick. So it's just building at the end of where the road is, a cul-de-sac to have emergency access and waste management turnaround. So that way traffic don't have to back up with the trucks and try and get back down the road or enter someone's private property. So there's an area there in order that we can install the cul-de-sac, and that's where we're going to place it. And that money for that came from the property to the east. They paid for it in order to close the road allowance.
Thank you through the chair. I have two questions. Regarding South Talbot and the redoing of that road, is there anything being done about where the driveways meet for the new Home Hardware that's going up and the McDonald's?
Through the mayor. So as part of the Essex Town Center development, there was a traffic impact study that was completed for the entire area, which included factors such as the Essex Town Center development, residential development, the potential for the growth of that Home Hardware site. At the time, we didn't know that it was going to be a Home Hardware, but the use and the fit still match. And factoring in also the closure of the interchange at Victoria and Highway 3. That study indicated that at some point there's going to need to be some improvements at the South Talbot and Maidstone intersection, the lighted intersection. At this time, the trigger at the moment is not to complete that intersection, but through further expansion of the Essex Town Center, we do intend to study that further to determine what the actual trigger will be after the actual closure of the MTO has occurred, once the Home Hardware is actually built, to determine what the actual traffic impact is at that site. So for more to come on that as the years go on. We have heard many things about traffic congestion, especially in the morning, related to the services that both Tim Hortons and McDonald's supply and the backing up of the traffic into that intersection. In light of the fact that, that we know that there's more to come on that intersection, it would be premature to try and implement any kind of measure and just rely more on drivers, adhering to the law in terms of driving and queuing up. So I would say more to come on that as time goes on. But we have heard that, and it is on our radar, and it's something that we will.
Thank you. And so my last question is, for the sidewalks, there's $120,000 dedicated to sidewalks. Do we have an idea of how many kilometers of sidewalk that gets us?
Mayor, it honestly depends. Usually the going rate right now is about $100 a square meter, roughly. By the time you add taxes in and tactile plates and things like that, you require at intersections. It's roughly, it might be a little bit below. So that would be about
1,200 meters, a little over a kilometer worth of sidewalks that would be replaced. Because actually, it's actually less than that, because a lot of the times we're not putting new in, we have to remove the existing, and there's a cost to doing that as well. So actually, I'm mistaken in that quantity. You're probably closer to around 700 meters or so of sidewalk. So is probably what you're actually looking for. And it depends on where they're placed and whether or not safety features will have to be done. It really, the selection of those is done based off of, poor conditions, as well as looking at what the underground servicing in the area is. If we have to go and replace a water main in a couple of years or a storm sewer, we don't necessarily want to go sidewalk that's going to have to be disturbed or ripped up. So the placement of those is chosen as we look at the conditions based, we review them yearly, right? The sidewalk. So we have kind of a list that we're looking at, but once we kind of know what the final budget is, then we'll choose the appropriate projects that fit for the town.
Anything else? Okay, we'll continue.
So the next slides all are under the stormwater management. So the next section of capital projects, for the most part, refer to the rehabilitation and reconstruction of our town bridges and culverts. This is one of the most important and highly budgeted assets within the town. And under provincial regulations, the town is responsible for completing inspections for bridges and culverts that are greater than 3 meters in span every 2 years. And from these inspections, a report is provided to the town with recommendations. Here's our copy of the one that we just got last year. You can see how thick it is. That is what we use to determine what the next structures that we'll put into detailed design and ultimately construction. So the first bridge that we have here, and just to provide an update on this, so clarification. So the next 3 slides, we've already, as the town, paid for detailed design on these. So we get detailed design done the year before and then construct them the next year. So we have the third concession and approximately at Roseboro Road. So this structure is getting preventative maintenance and safety improvements to extend the structure's useful life. The next structure is at the 5th concession near McCormick Side Road. Once again, this has preventative maintenance on the structure and safety improvements as well. And the third structure is once again on the 3rd concession. This is closer to County Road 23 on our town line. The works here as well, preventative maintenance and safety improvements to extend and these are all done to extend the useful life of the structure. So as I mentioned before, we have our OSAM Bridge report that describes identified structures in need of upcoming work. And as I mentioned, we get that work done a year in advance. So the town's last report was done in 2022, and then the structures on the next 3 slides have been identified for improvements. So we're seeking funds by town council for the detailed design of these structures. It's done by an outside consultant with the intention to have these structures rehabilitated either in 2024 is the goal, but possibly 2025, depending on what comes back on the expected costs once they do their final investigative works. So the first structure that we have identified is Walker Side Road near North Malden. The next structure is on the 3rd concession again near Suffolk Road. And the last structure is Mole Road by South Malden Road. So all those that were identified in the report, and we're looking to get the detailed design done so we can get those completed in the upcoming years. The last slide that we have for stormwater management is the Richmond Drain Bank stabilization. So the drain banks of the 5th concession drain need to be stabilized as they're caving in, and they're starting to fall into the drain, and the roadway has a possibility to, if it continues to fail. So we are looking to install sheet pile walls along the bottom of the drain and then riprap from the top of that wall up to the top of the bank. This is going to be done under multiple phases, and this is actually the 2nd phase of the project. So has a budget of $1 million, which is a lot, but the safety concerns and costs are high because of the type of work that is required for this type of construction. Any questions in regards to stormwater management?
Through the mayor. Thank you. So just a quick question about the, your bridges and culverts. You mentioned, and you had a slide up for the Walker Side Road near North Malden. Is that at North Malden and Walker Side Road? And I'll tell you the reason I'm asking is because we're also just doing the road resurfacing right there this year. So, and we're looking at getting the engineer report to do the work in the future there. So I'm just wondering.
It is, and we do realize that there is a bit of an overlap. Unfortunately, it's more of a North Malden is more of a timing, right? We've been phasing this out and this bridge was identified for repair. It's kind of come up now. It would have been maybe nice to have had it where it lined up a little bit better, but we're not talking about doing a full rip out by like putting a water main in and have to take out a lane. There's maybe a small section of asphalt that will likely be impacted by the construction of the bridge of any bridge. But once again, we have to get the detailed design done and find out what works need to be done. It might be safety measures and not have to affect the road. It might be just the over the bridge deck or something along those lines and not touch North Malden. So we have to look and see what the engineer's report has, but we need to get that work designed first to see what the impacts will be. The reason that we can do North Malden usually is though that we are able to get the county to do it. If we don't hit them probably this year, they may not have work in the area and we may not be able to get that work done. It would possibly delay that for beyond a couple of years, depending on where the county is paving, right? They may not go into that area. I believe, if I can remember right, they have some work being done on County Road 11, not that far away. So that's how we're hoping to piggyback with them. If they don't work in the area, they won't necessarily take on our contract.
I wouldn't want to do anything to delay that completing that piece of North Malden, but it would have been, let's hope that the culvert the engineer report doesn't tell us we have to tear it all up and put a, full restoration or rebuild or whatever.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, like just to give you an idea, that North Malden price, right, is for about 2.5 kilometers worth of road, right? So we're talking about a, 30, 40 meter section, maybe at the most, that could be impacted overall. So it's still worthwhile to move forward on the asphalt project.
Councillor Verbeek, any further questions from members of council? Okay, if not, let's keep going.
I was just going to introduce you. You don't want me to introduce it? You got to turn your mic on too. Last but certainly not least is Robert Mackey. He's our manager of environmental services. So Robert will be taking us through the water budget and the wastewater budget. So we'll go through the water budget first to ask any questions and then followed up by the wastewater and then questions to council. So without further ado.
Kevin, good afternoon. So we're going to start with the water portion of the environmental services budget. So before I start off, I just want to kind of take you back to Norm's first slide there, where he had that nice graph where he kind of in the middle there. That's where ideally you want to replace your equipment. I'm at the far right of that graph. Okay, so when it comes to my equipment, that's where we're at. So next slide, please. All right, so we have our 3-ton heavy-duty pickup truck. It's past its useful life. It's almost 30 years old. Extreme corrosion. It was actually a safety hazard. It was pulled from the road. The truck has now since been scrapped and it's no longer in our fleet. So last year, this truck was approved to be downsized to a 1-ton truck. Okay, so after kind of reviewing our operational needs at our department, we realized that downsizing our truck is really going to kind of diminish our service level that we roll out. So we're requesting an additional $90,000 to replace the truck with a 3-ton dump. Oh, sorry, I had another point. Could you go back one slide? So this will aid in performing service repairs of water main breaks in-house and not relying on contractors for every single water main break and repair, as well as we can utilize it in day-to-day operations for hauling materials and stuff like that. So it'll be a very useful item going forward. Next slide, please.
So we have our John Deere backhoe. As you can see, it's a recurring theme. It's a 1994, 30 years old. It's past its useful life. It's got extreme corrosion. It is not safe to drive on the road at this moment. So it is not allowed to leave our Harrow shop yard. So we use it to load trucks and move material around. So we can't do any excavation work with it on site anywhere. It does not leave our shop. So we're hoping to replace this backhoe and be able to use it in the future on site. Next slide, please. Okay, so next we're going to get into our Aqua capital recommendation. So a little background about Aqua. So Ontario Clean Water Agency is contracted to run, monitor, maintain our water treatment plant, our wastewater treatment plant, our various pumping stations, and our lagoon systems across Essex here. So we typically meet with the members of Aqua and we establish a 6-year capital major maintenance plan. 6-year maintenance list, which we establish our yearly capital budgets with. We meet quarterly to discuss project statuses and monitor budget progress, and all projects are broken down by ward. So our first ward is our first water project is in Ward 3-4 for the water treatment plant. And the recurring theme, as you're going to see going forward, is most of the equipment that we're looking to replace in all of our capital recommendations are original to the facility. So they're just getting past their, their useful life. They're very, very old. They're starting to break down. So that's what the recurring theme is going to be as we move forward here through these slides. So some of the major projects for the water treatment plant are replacing the filter inlet valves. The HVAC system needs to be replaced. It's original to the facility. The backwash pond needs to be cleaned out, needs to be dredged to free up capacity. And we're looking at upgrading the pole barn that's on site. So next slide, that will be the end of the water. So if anybody has any questions, please feel free.
Thank you, through the mayor. With the updates that we're doing to Aqua, are those going to be enough for when all of Harrow is developed, the rest of Essex is developed, for the growth that we're going to be seeing in the next 10 years, let's say?
So those recommendations that we have for this capital budget are just more so just major maintenance items to replace our existing infrastructure that's in place. I know we have various studies going forward for the future so that we can gear everything towards growth. But these recommendations are more so to pretty much replace what we have right now.
Thank you, through the mayor. And when would we see what is needed for growth? When will we see that come through a budget?
Thank you for that question, Councilor McGuire-Blaise. We'll go to Director Gerard for that.
Thank you. So I just I'll take the floor from Rob just to speak on a growth related subject line. So the town monitors our capacity as ongoing development occurs. We do this through requiring developers to complete studies for the town, through like identifying conveyance, whether we can convey the water to there, whether we have enough treatment capacity to supply water. This is a very heavily regulated industry. So we have like down to the cubic meter per day that we're allowed to produce and to distribute. So we would have to open up, environmental compliance is everything. The town also undertakes its own studies as well, through master plan documents, water models, growth related studies, DC background studies, things like that we look at servicing the municipality as a whole. The previous council actually approved us to move forward with a water modeling exercise, which is actually under Rob's portfolio. We're working on that now. As the completion of that occurs, we'll report back to council on any findings. We'll deliver the report and kind of give you an update on what the state of the current system is, as well as any growth potential in the future. As Rob had mentioned, it's key to understand that everything that Aqua recommends is only going to be on a replacement nature, never growth related nature. Administration would propose any growth related projects. Aqua is hired and contracted to maintain that plant, and they make those recommendations based on the operational needs of the plant, and that's what you're seeing here as part of that list.
Last night, we did have a Union Water meeting and they're running at 80% capacity and they have several projects that they are working for in the near future to grow capacity because Union Water, just for an example, is growing at 4 to 5% a year and it's not sustainable unless they come up with more increases in infrastructure. Okay, we'll go Councillor Mady and then Councillor Allard.
To you, Madam Mayor, the filters that you're going to be replacing, is that gonna help with the like the emergency event that we had in the summertime here, where our filters were being clogged up because of the upswelling that we had in the lake, or is it just going to be kind of a? Thank you.
Through the mayor. So that event was actually a pretty unique event, and it had to do with our source water, which is the events that occurred within Erie. So we saw a major temperature shift in Lake Erie over a very short period of time, which can have a detriment to the quality of water that we take from the lake. That's what caused the issue with the shortage of water in the summertime and back in August. The filters themselves, the media was approved by the previous council to replace the filter media, so that's completed. What's proposed as part of this is to complete the actual valves that go before the water enters into the filters themselves. So those are just valve replacements.
There, will there be any interruption in services during these updates?
No, if there are any sort of, we don't anticipate any sort of service interruptions, and if there are, they'll be communicated to the public.
Sorry, Councillor Garen, did you have your hand up? Okay, Director Drusevich.
It's for you. That's what Councillor Garen said. But I did just want to make a note that I should have said it earlier, but before our manager, Rob, started speaking. So all the projects that Rob is presenting right now are user rate funded. So very important to note, as they do not impact the tax base. This is identified in the study that we do with Watson and Associates. And the increase you saw in December for water rates accounts for these capital projects.
We go to the wastewater slide, please. Okay, next slide. Okay, so we'll start off with Ward 1 here for our capital recommendation. So within Ward 1 here, when it comes to wastewater treatment, we have two facilities. We have the Essex Pollution Control Plant and the Northeast Lagoon. And both of these facilities treat the sewage for the Essex Center. So for the, we'll start with the Essex Pollution Control Plant. We're looking at UV system module replacement, as well as the sludge pump cutter replacements, aerator diffuser replacements. So the UV system is kind of becoming unreliable and parts are becoming very hard to source, which is going to kind of open us up to potential compliance risk. So we're looking at installing a new system, which will also be energy efficient. When it comes to the sludge pump cutters, they're just past their useful life. They need to be replaced. And the aerator diffuser replacement, we're just looking at purchasing replacement heads, which is typically done through our annual maintenance program when they pump down and inspect the sludge tanks. So next is the Northeast Lagoon system. With this, oh no, sorry, the same slide. So with the Northeast Lagoon system, like I said before, it's kind of the same theme where we just have some pieces of equipment that are original to the facility that need to be replaced. So we have the vacuum relief valves over at Pump Station 4, which convey the sewage to the lagoon system. They need to get replaced, and then we have some valves that need to get replaced in the lagoon system itself. Next slide, please. So we're off to Ward 3 here. So this is the Colchester Lagoon system. The major portion of this budget here is the cell 3 dredging. So just like over at the Harewood Lagoon systems, we've identified that there are some capacity issues with cell number 3 there. So it needs to be dredged out, needs to be cleaned out, so we can free up some capacity for the future. As well as the lift station piping replacement. There's a lot of components to this lift station that are all original to the facility itself. and they're starting to corrode and degrade and they need to get replaced. The effluent auto sampler has become very unreliable, which will open us up to some compliance issues in the future. So we're looking at replacing that auto sampler this year. The next slide, please. And last but not least, and the smallest budget item for our capital here is Ward 4, the Hero Lagoon system. So we're looking at replacing the cutters on the Muffin Monster, which is just a brand name. I figured I would put it in there because it's kind of clever. So it's actually just a grinder pump that just grinds up the sewage before it gets sent in there, so it doesn't clog up any pumps or anything like that. So it was a quirky name, so I figured I'd keep it in there for you guys. As well as a raw well bypass piping that comes from the pump station is starting to degrade and corrode. It needs to be replaced. It's original to the facility as well. So that's the end of the capital recommendation. So if you have any questions, happy to answer.
Questions from council members? I want to thank you for all your work over the holidays with all the busted pipes and everything. It's a busy
Yeah.
holiday season.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Our staff works around the clocks there. So no, definitely appreciate it.
We will move on.
Thank you through the chair. So one of a few more slides left. We're doing great for time. So this is a good timing for this quote. Maddie found this quote for us. So operations keep the lights on. So we've tackled operations. Strategy provides a light at the end of the tunnel, but project management is a train engine that moves this organization forward. And that's who you just heard from, right? So all of our project managers have presented their projects for you. And I just want to say thank you. They've all done a great job. Also just want to say thank you to Tracy Stevens. She arranged for lunch today. So, and then thank you to this council. So it's been a great day of budget education. And some great questions have been posed. So like I said, just 2 or 3 more slides to get through. Next slide, please. You'll notice there's an entire section now beginning on page 61 onwards, and this is for carry forward projects. So carry forward projects is a terminology that we use for projects that have already been approved by council. So they are 2022 projects. They met with delays. They just didn't get complete in 2022. So you will see at deliberations, there'll be a proposed resolution, and all of these have already been pre-approved by council, previous council to be completed. Next slide. So the next steps, feel free to reach out to myself or any director or the CAO to discuss this budget document that we put in front of you. We welcome any meetings. We can do it similar to the Essex Streetscape conversation, where we can meet as a team. We'll leave that up to you, but we're more than welcome to sit with you and go through any sections of the document that you might still have questions on. The next meeting dates are set for another all-day event beginning Monday, February 13th. And that's when the spotlight turns to you. So at this point, I'll open it up to any final questions or comments.
That was a fantastic day, I thought. Any other questions from members of council? Councillor Guerin?
So previously we had, and I think you talked about it perhaps already, but projects that fall outside the budget that councilors may have, we used to have a list of those and we kind of keep them on the radar and try to, when we couldn't fit them in the budget one year, moving forward to the next and so on. What happens to those? Are we going to be updating that or?
Chair, so with this new term of council, we request that you send those in to us. So feel free to send them in. We have discontinued it from the previous budget document. We noted that it was starting to become very heavy in projects that we don't know that would ever have gotten accomplished. So we thought with the new term of council, now's the time for you to create your own council list of projects that you want to see. So we recommend that you forward them in to the budget team.
Question. And I'm sure during our strategic plan, we'll come up with a whole bunch of ideas too. The AOC?
I want to echo Director Gooser's comments. I want to thank council for today. I want to thank staff, especially our finance department, but all our managers and all our departments. It's a lot of information today. A lot of information. I think the staff have done a good job going through that document as an education. That was the intent. You hear a number 4.12, but hopefully you got an understanding what work into making that number, right? A better understanding the capital projects, how they're funded. So when you get to the budget deliberations, or if you're asked by residents, we hopefully today helped you understand a little better to help educate them so you can be our ambassadors. So I want to echo, if you have any questions, we encourage it. Set up one-on-one meetings with us. That's been the most productive in the past. Again, we're starting new capital projects and maybe it's not 2023, still send it to us. Hey, 2024 or within my term, I want to accomplish this project, send it to us. We'll start compiling that list. Last thing I just want to say, there's a lot of topics today where they're talking about facilities. In March, and we'll do 2 tours, one in March, one in April. We'll take you on a tour because now you're hearing them, but now you'll get to see these tours too, right? So it's kind of, especially with the water division, I mean, we hear about it, it works, but it's fascinating to actually see these plants in person. So we'll get you out to those as well. So thank you for today. Appreciate it. I'll turn back to you, Mayor Bondi.
Thank you. Looking for a motion to receive today's report entitled 2023 Proposed Budget and 4-Year Forecast. Councillor Guerin, supported by Deputy Mayor Shepley. Any questions to that motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried unanimously. And now looking for a motion to adjourn. Councillor McGuire Blaze and Councillor Mady. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried unanimously, and we will see you when we see you next. We're all going to Roma, so we'll try to make you proud and have a good weekend, everybody.